will be more than we can bear. The concern, obviously, is that there were emergency workers inside the World Trade Centers when they collapsed, when the Twin Towers came down, and the evacuations had not been completed. And as the Secretary of Defense said a moment ago, when we get the totals from the Pentagon, it will be a lot more than a few. We do have some estimates on injured, but again, these are highly unreliable. The mayor, again, saying at least 2,100 injured in New York, 1,500 taken to Liberty State Park across the Hudson River in New Jersey, 600 taken to hospitals. And the most chilling, one of the most chilling quotes that we've heard today, St. Vincent's Hospital here in New York had more than 200 injured. One doctor, Stephen Stern, saying there are hundreds of people burned head to toe. And we know many burn victims have been evacuated, some as far away as being taken to Canada, some being flown to Vanderbilt Hospital in Nashville. The military apparently flying those burn victims out.
Thanks, Tony. There he is, the president, coming back from a trip that has taken him first to Florida today to talk about education, when ironically the political establishment in Washington wanted to talk about federal budget and keeping the country out of recession. And then this happened just as the president was visiting a group of people. He learned about it, spoke to the people, then moved on to Louisiana and then out to Nebraska, where he went into a bunker totally reminiscent of the situation which the president might have found himself in and which the country prepared for during the Cold War, when the issue was nuclear exchange between the United States and the Soviet Union. And now, after something of a sharp debate, we gather, between the president's political staff and between the Secret Service, the president is coming home to the White House. There's nothing that this president, this new and young president, could ever have imagined was going to occur on his watch, which would test his leadership qualities so. And he is going, and how he responds, how he accommodates the country's frustration, and how he accommodates the country's anxiety and anger, and how he responds or finds a way to respond, and as we've said many times, to whom will mark George Bush, however it goes, one way or the other. As he will speak to the nation at 9 o'clock tonight, and as Claire Shipman said to us, the representatives of the Congress, who've been pretty forthright today, earlier Senator Biden early today, saying that Congress must be seen to keep going, that the most important thing is that terrorists not be allowed to see that American life has been interrupted to any greater extent than it already has today. So we're going to hear in full later tonight, but we shall be on the air for the entire time for any development. Lisa Stark, who covers aviation for us on a full-time basis from Washington, is in Seattle today. Among other things, the headquarters of the Boeing company, which had its aircraft involved in these hijackings today, 757 and a 767. What can you tell us, Lisa?
Well, Peter, it now appears that the weapon of choice appears to have been knives on board these planes. We know from reports from our sources and others that reports from flight attendants on an American flight and from passengers on two different flights, we're now learning. The United flight that went into the World Trade Tower, as well as the flight that went into the Pentagon. Cell phone calls from passengers on both those flights reported that men were on board with knives or box cutters, that flight attendants had been injured or killed, that people had stormed the cockpit. We also learned that on one of the flights, the American Airlines flight that went into the World Trade Tower, the flight attendant was also able to tell the American Airlines Operations Center, she reached them and told them what was going on board. She was able to tell them the actual seat number of the passenger who was causing the problems on the plane. So that may lead authorities at least to one name, at least the name of the person who booked that ticket. She was able to give that information to the people at American Airlines. Obviously,
from ABC 7 News, this is a special report, continuing coverage, America Under Attack.
And Washington is still reeling after these horrendous sequences of events. I'm Kathleen Matthews.
And I'm Del Walters. What we are seeing now in this hour, I guess, is the resilient spirit of the United States government. Everyone vowing that life will go on in the nation's capital and across the nation. We want to show you now a graphic that will tell you what will be open in our area tomorrow. We are being told now that federal offices in the district are on unscheduled leave, which is in effect, which means that, yes, you can come into work, but if you feel like you need need to go home, you can. Also, you heard Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld saying that the Pentagon will be open tomorrow. It will be open despite the attack that happened today.
A lot of schools closed today, and so we want to bring you up to date as to what classes are now canceled. University of Maryland College Park will be canceled tomorrow, but the campus will be open. Also tomorrow, classes are now canceled at Anne Arundel County schools, Beauvoir, Calverton School, National Cathedral School, Potomac School. Those are private schools we've just listed, and also Prince William County, and these private schools, St. Agnes, St. Albans, and St. Stephen's. We'll keep you up to date because that situation continues to change.
And also at this hour, there is a state of emergency that remains in effect in Virginia, Maryland, and the district. But earlier today, a short while ago, D.C. Mayor Anthony Williams addressed what he considers the situation to be at this hour in the District of Columbia.
We're declaring a state of emergency in order to put everyone on alert, in order to ensure that we have the highest level of preparedness. Obviously, if something were to happen, God forbid, and we pray that it won't, we will be fully prepared to then execute the necessary contingency plans.
And we are also receiving word that D.C. Mayor Anthony Williams may consider asking the World Bank and IMF to postpone those meetings, which were a subject of great concern, that were supposed to happen later on in this month.
Ground zero for the terrorist attack here in the Washington area is, of course, the Pentagon. And ABC 7 News reporter Jim Clark has been there all day long. Jim, bring us up to date.
Kathleen, since we last spoke with you, dozens of firefighters have climbed atop the Pentagon roof here alongside the gaping hole where the airliner struck. They are trying to vent the fire and flames, perhaps get hoses in there to put out the fire where it is still burning. One of the many ironies of this day, while all that was going on, Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, General Hugh Shelton, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and others held a news conference here at the Pentagon. Rumsfeld saying the Pentagon is open for business today, will be tomorrow, and General Shelton calling this a barbaric act of terrorism by fanatics and assuring the nation that no matter what happens now, the armed forces are ready. Virginia Senator John Warner, the former chairman of the Armed Services Committee, calling it the most tragic day in America's history. Rumsfeld giving us a slight clue on casualties, saying that hundreds were working in the area where the plane struck, and that he indicated the casualties may be heavy, but he didn't discuss any numbers. Right now, the painful effort is going on here, the very careful, difficult effort to try to recover any who may still be alive and trapped in that terrible wrecking. Back to you.
Jim, thanks very much.
And we want to remind you that whereas we are in hour 10 now of this tragic day, there is much more still ahead. At 9 o'clock, the President will address the nation. We, of course, will carry that address here live on ABC 7. And also, we want to remind you that we will continue to break in every half an hour to bring you updates as to what the situation is and as it unfolds locally. Now back to ABC News and Peter Jennings.
Agency is somewhat limited because their offices may have been wiped out at the Pentagon today. That was the area their offices were located in. To talk about what leads were you looking at? What intelligence did you have? What things came in? Did we miss something? Is there something that we could have read into that we may have overlooked? Did we have any inkling of this, that we should have known about, but more importantly right now that will point us in the direction of who did it? There's been a lot of discussion of quote-unquote going to war, and the question is still with whom, and they seem to be a great distance away from knowing that right now.
One of the things that we talked about a little earlier today, before this period we usually devote to World News Tonight, was the National Security Agency, which listens to so much, both at home and abroad, has constant monitoring of cell phones both here and abroad. And that will surely be one of the first places they will listen to see if they can pick up communication between the members of what was a very well-coordinated attack.
Yes, and I mean, they, after realizing that there were signals coming from cell phones on those planes, they've been scanning backwards, and we understand picking up phone calls from other civilians on the planes that may have given valuable intelligence as to who the hijackers were, how many.
The fact that they're going to begin to gather data in Atlanta is, of course, reminiscent of the Oklahoma City bombing investigation, which the FBI messed up so much, in part, we think, because they were so overloaded with information, trying to get around a past problem immediately at the beginning of this one.
Well, they've certainly learned a lot of lessons there. Their computer system is somewhat new, and they now have an online case tracking system, which should be helpful. But that's going to be a problem, because this is going to be a case of worldwide leads and national leads and a tremendous amount of paper to keep track of. and things not to overlook.
And just so to remind people of how tough it's going to be, the new director of the FBI is a man named Robert Mueller. He's been on the job
just a few days.
Just a few days, and he walks into this. Who will run the operation? FBI Washington, FBI New York? A little hard to understand.
This operation will be run by FBI headquarters from the highest level, from the directors, but the office that has right now been tasked as the lead office is the New York office of the FBI, and there are a number of reasons for that. They have the most experience in international terrorism cases. They have the most cases that they feel may be related to this action, and they have the assets and experience all around the world. And of course, there is the added advantage that they're on the ground in New York, where the largest crime scene is right now. They investigated the first World Trade Center bombing. The bombings of the embassies was a New York FBI case. So this is something that they're quite unfortunately all too well experienced at.
Other than the rescue, the search operation and the hopeful rescue operation, thank you, John, which New York is involved in tonight, and at the Pentagon as well, we're in something of a state of suspended animation. Governor Pataki is just one of the politicians who's come out today and said, make an example of those who are responsible. Well, the answer is the Pentagon was stunned. The FBI, by his own admission, was stunned. You heard Secretary Rumsfeld say they wouldn't discuss intelligence. Nobody knew this was going to happen. There isn't a single shred of evidence, as we've said before today, that anybody had an inkling that this was coming. And if they did, we'll learn about that in days ahead. But in the meantime, one more attempt to pull together this day in New York City. Clearly, New Yorkers and others across the country argue the most important symbol of the United States on the east coast of the United States, and those twin trade towers, a symbol of so much that is America. Here's ABC's James Walker.
As the upper floors of the Trade Center towers burned, inside, employees scrambled to escape.
For the 82nd floor, and I don't know where my peers are. I don't know. I hope to God they're okay. That's all I can say. I don't know what. We saw a shadow. It looked like a plane. Next thing we know, it was boom, and the floor started shaking. And then we saw debris fall down, and next thing we know, we had to get out of the building. We were stuck on the stairs for a while. We finally got down to the lobby. Then we get to the lobby, it was this big explosion.
As soon as he got hit, I was thrown to a window. So I was very lucky to get out. There's a lot of people that didn't get out. There's a lot of people coming down the stairs, burnt up. It's bad.
On the street, New Yorkers looked up and watched in horror.
And then we saw the people jumping. We saw what we thought was debris, and we realized it was people jumping.
I started seeing people they started jumping out of the window, like the 96th floor. They just started one at a time from different parts of the building. I just started seeing people just drop. And I must have counted like 30 or 40 people, you know.
Rescue workers raced to the scene, but then, some 90 minutes after the attack,
Oh my God, there it goes!
soot and rubble were everywhere, and with it, chaos.
Get out of here!
What scared me the most was the panic, and people were running, and you just saw this great big cloud of dust just coming from the center of the building and mushrooming out towards the river. There was people had no place to go. People were going to jump in the river. They were going to swim. They were jumping on a boat. They were breaking glass to get into nearby homes and restaurants.
There was, dust and whatnot everywhere, but it was...
The second building has just come down.
You okay, officer?
Firefighters and police officers found themselves momentarily helpless. trained to save others, they suddenly had to save themselves.
It's a war. We've been attacked. It's like World War II. It's World War III. It's unbelievable.
Tonight, crews are standing by to start searching for the thousands of people feared missing in the debris. James Walker, ABC News, New York.
Well, you hear fire. Nobody is accustomed to tragedy to a greater extent than firefighters, and you hear a firefighter there describing it as World War II. I want to go back and reach into our earlier coverage today for a couple of things. But first, I know that most of the people at ABC News bureaus around the country are out covering the story. Any of them who we can get to come in and give us some sense of the mood of the country as a whole at the moment would be very much appreciated, even if they call in on the telephone. A little earlier today, ABC's Lynn Scher put together a package for us in which we asked someone to take the radar monitoring that the Federal Aviation Administration does of the entire country in components all the way across the country of this one particular aircraft that they were able to track from Boston, maneuvering in such a way that it became clear to them at a horrifying moment that this was an aircraft not following its flight plan that was headed to New York City. And if you put that together with the sense that some people got from the aircraft that there was something going on board these aircraft, simply horrified everybody in the law enforcement establishment, not to mention the two airlines, American and United, are involved. And Charlie Gibson and I have just momentarily been talking about this. Have we got this video available? Can we just move this video up and we'll listen first to the man who tracked this one aircraft. Remember, there were two. Tracked this one aircraft as it was headed towards New York City.
Plane took off about 8 o'clock out of Logan in Boston on its way to Los Angeles, climbed to 29,000 feet and cruising at about 450 knots. About that time, 8:28, the flight took an immediate hard left turn due south. The speed initially decreased by over 100 miles an hour and then increased to over 500. And then as it approached the New York area, it slowed to all the way down to about 300 knots. So, and then tragically it impacted in the World Trade Center. American 11 was indeed the first flight, we have confirmed that, of the two.
But as ABC's Charlie Gibson points out in this conversation with me just a moment, Charlie, there were two rogue aircraft who were out of flight pattern.
Well, Peter, the two airplanes that hit the two twin towers of the World Trade Center were both out of Boston. That was a description of what happened to Flight 11, which was the first one to come into the towers. And just looking at the timing, it's interesting. The plane took off at exactly 8 o'clock from Logan Airport in Boston, and it was at 8:28 that it took that hard left-hand turn and then crashed into the World Trade Center at about 8:45. So that means for 17 minutes, some air traffic controller had to know that they had a rogue aircraft on their hands heading for New York City. The other flight, the one that went into the second World Trade Center, and that was United Flight 175, a 767 that had taken off for Boston for Los Angeles, took off at 8:15. Then just after it passed the Massachusetts-Connecticut border heading west, just south of Pittsfield, Massachusetts, the flight took a 30-degree turn to the south, left toward New Jersey, then another 90-degree turn. It was heading toward Atlantic City, and then it took another hard turn northeast, basically doing a U-turn over New Jersey, and slammed into the to the building at 9:03. So again, for a considerable period of time, the air traffic controllers had to know that they had not one but two rogue aircrafts heading for New York.
Thanks, Charlie, very much. Now we want to go to Washington. I think it's Washington because the Attorney General, John Ashcroft, is about to make a public appearance in the White House press room with the man, of course, responsible for the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Today, America has experienced one of the greatest tragedies ever witnessed on our soil. These heinous acts of violence are an assault on the security of our nation. They are an assault on the security and the freedom of every American citizen. We will not tolerate such acts. We will expend every effort and devote all the necessary resources to bring the people responsible for these acts, these crimes, to justice. Now is the time for us to come together as a nation to offer our support, our prayers for victims and for their families, for the rescue workers, for law enforcement officials, for every one of us that has been changed forever by this horrible tragedy. The following is a summary of the known facts surrounding today's incidents. American Airlines Flight 11 departed Boston for Los Angeles, hijacked by suspects armed with knives. This plane crashed into the World Trade Center. United Airlines Flight 175 departed Boston for Los Angeles, was hijacked and crashed into the World Trade Center. American Airlines Flight 77 departed Washington Dulles for Los Angeles, was hijacked and crashed into the Pentagon. United Airlines Flight 93 departed Newark for San Francisco, was hijacked and crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Crime scenes have been established by the federal authorities in New York, in Washington, D.C. area, in Pittsburgh, in Boston, and in Newark. The full resources of the Department of Justice, including the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Immigration and Naturalization Service, the U.S. Attorney's offices, the U.S. Marshals Service, the Bureau of Prisons, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and the Office of Justice Programs are being deployed to investigate these crimes and to assist survivors and victim families. Thousands of FBI agents in all of the field offices across the country and in the international LEGAT offices, assisted by personnel from other Department of Justice agencies, are cooperating in this investigation. The FBI has established a website where people can report any information about these crimes. That address is www.ifccfbi.gov. That address again, www.ifccfbi.gov. Individuals can report any information they know about these crimes to that website. It takes courage for individuals to come forward in situations like this, and I urge anyone with information that may be useful and helpful to authorities to use this opportunity. The Office of Victims of Crime has established a toll-free 800 number for family and friends of victims. They can call 800-331-0075 to leave contact information for a future time when more information is available, to find out information about a victim, or to find out information about the rights of victims and the services available to victim survivors and victim families. The determination of these terrorists will not deter the determination of the American people. We are survivors, and freedom is a survivor. A free American people will not be intimidated, nor will we be defeated. We will find the people responsible for these cowardly acts, and justice will be done. Tommy.
On Ashcroft. And this is Tommy Thompson,
Every single
Secretary of
American
Health and Human Services.
Lost something today. And every one of us at this time expresses our deepest sympathy to the victims of today's tragedies and their families. It is now our mission to begin the healing from this tragedy. From the moment that we learned of these attacks, the Department of Health and Human Services has begun readying teams and resources to be sent to New York City and the Washington area to meet any needs of state and local officials. So far, we have sent 4 disaster medical teams to New York City, and 3 of these disaster medical teams to the Washington Northern Virginia, Baltimore area. These medical teams each consist of about 35 physicians, nurses, and emergency medical technicians. They are all trained to deal with traumatic injuries and other emergency needs. We've also sent 4 disaster mortuary operational response teams to New York and 3 to the greater Washington area. We're also in the process of shipping a great deal of emergency medical supplies to New York City with the help of the Centers for Disease Control. In short, we're making the full force of the Department of Health and Human Services, both its resources and medical expertise available to the areas that need our assistance. We've also this afternoon activated the United States Public Health Service Commission Corps, which consists of approximately 6,000 health professionals. We also are giving backup assistance to the 500-bed ship Comfort from the United States Navy. Americans all over are calling up and asking what they can do. The best thing they can do is respond to this great call by volunteering to give blood. We need Americans to continue to answer that call. No matter where you live, please do your civic duty and assist us by donating blood. It is our primary job is to make sure Americans harmed by this tragedy get the help that they need. We will remain in constant contact with the governors, the mayors, public health officials, and other local officials to make sure that all their needs are being met. It is a sad day, but America and all of its citizens certainly share tonight in the grief that it's been caused. And as the President and everybody in his administration have said, we, the government, will continue to operate and continue to provide the services to all Americans.
Well, it is important for the country. This is, let's just come away from the White House for just a moment, for a second now, and just inadvertently, we get from, it's so important at this point to hear from the representatives of government. Here are the leaders of the Senate and the House of Representatives together. The Speaker of the House in the middle, Dennis Hastert, Tom Daschle, the Senate leader to his left.
At a time like this, no words that we should utter today or this evening can help the hearts and souls and feelings of the victims and the families that were a part of this great tragedy that happened in this country today. Our prayers and thoughts and words of consolation goes out to all those who have suffered. But one thing that happens here in this place is when American suffers and when people perpetrate acts against this country, we as a Congress and as a government stand united, and we stand together. Senators and House members, Democrats and Republicans will stand shoulder to shoulder to fight this evil that's been perpetrated on this nation. We will stand together to make sure that those who have brought forth this evil deed will pay the price. We're not sure who this is yet. But we have our suspicions. And when that is justified and when those suspicions are justified, we will act. We will stand with the President, we will stand with this government, and we will stand as Americans together through this time. Thank you.
Applause from the politicians for one another, almost willing themselves to stand shoulder to shoulder in a nonpartisan way. This is Tom Daschle, the Democratic leader of the Senate.
Despicable acts were an assault on our people and on our freedom. As the representatives of the people, we are here to declare that our resolve has not been weakened by these horrific and cowardly acts. Congress will convene tomorrow. And we will speak with one voice to condemn these attacks, to comfort the victims and their families, to commit our full support to the effort to bring those responsible to justice. We, Republicans and Democrats, House and Senate, stand strongly united behind the President and will work together to ensure that the full resources of the government are brought to bear in these efforts. Our heartfelt thoughts and our fervent prayers are with the injured and the families of those who have been lost.
We know, as a nation, as we said, our thoughts and prayers are with those families and those injured and those who are the casualties of today's attack. We also remember those thousands of people who are rescue workers. We ask now that we all bow our heads in a moment of silence and remembrance. Thank you.
So, brief remarks from the political leadership, both Republican and Democrat, on the Hill today, and many members of Congress, both the House and the Senate, including Senator Lott just leaving the camera, I think hugging Barbara Mikulski, Democratic.
Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Well, I do not know whether that was a spontaneous gesture, but whether it was or was not, to see members of the House and the Senate, men and women, hugging each other in the face of this attack on the country, standing together on the steps of the Capitol on the evening of the 11th day of the month, 9th month of the year, singing God Bless America, surely reflects some heartfelt attempt by the members of the Congress to say to the world that this is a unified nation in the face of tragedy, as it has, for the most part, always been.
From ABC 7 News, this is a special report, continuing coverage, America Under Attack.
Several incredible and heartwarming scenes unfolding across the nation's capital at this hour. We just witnessed one of those on the steps of the United States Capitol. Good evening. I'm Del Walters.
And I'm Maureen Bunyan. We want to bring you up to date on the local situation here in Washington in the wake of these terrible attacks today on the Pentagon and also in New York. Let's give you a list of what is open and what is closed and what's going to be open tomorrow in this city of ours. Federal offices are all on unscheduled leave, in effect, but they are open You can take unscheduled leave if you wish. All D.C. government offices are open. You're expected to be there at work, and the Pentagon is open, and it will be business as usual there.
In addition, because many businesses are vowing to open tomorrow, not only saying that they will open, but vowing to open, Metro says the trains will be running in and out of the district. Of course, the Pentagon and airport stations will be closed, but they say they are preparing for a normal rush hour tomorrow, and that is the schedule that they will be sticking to.
And Dell, of course, many schools are going to be closed tomorrow, and classes canceled, as you can see on your screen. University of Maryland at College Park canceled tomorrow. Anne Arundel County, Beauvoir, Carrollton School, Falls Church City, National Cathedral School, classes canceled tomorrow. Also Potomac School, Prince William County, St. Agnes, St. Albans, St. Stephen's closed.
In addition, we are awaiting word right now on whether or not there will be any scheduling changes with regards to the president's address. As last we know, and as last we checked, it is still scheduled for 9 o'clock tonight.
We have Dale Solly live at the Virginia Medical Center at Arlington with the latest on the conditions of the people from the Pentagon blast who were carried and who were brought into that center. Dale?
Maureen, Virginia Hospital Center Arlington takes great pride in calling itself the official hospital of the Pentagon. Well, officially, the number of victims from the Pentagon has climbed steadily through the course of the day. It now stands at 42. 42 people have been seen here through the course of the day. 14, we understand from hospital spokespeople, have been admitted, 8 of them to intensive care. 4 of them are Arlington County firefighters injured in the aftermath of the pictures that you are looking at now. Now, we can also tell you we got word just a few moments ago that 2 doctors from this hospital, the head of emergency services and another physician as well, were asked to come to the Pentagon tonight by the county EMS, not necessarily to triage people who were there, but to keep an eye, to monitor the situation as EMS workers continue to search the rubble there for victims at the Pentagon. At some point, we are expecting them to come back and expecting to have a word with them at some point later on this evening. That's the situation here. The numbers have tapered off, but as I've said, they have continued to climb. Reporting live in Arlington, Dale Solly, ABC 7 News. Back to you.
Thanks, Dale.
And Dale and Maureen, as we have been fearing throughout the day, as the hours go on, the numbers will begin to trickle in with regards to the actual count. We now are understanding that of the first 400 firefighters that responded to the scene in New York, where the twin World Trade Center towers were bombed, the vice president of the city's firefighter union says that as many as half of those 400 firefighters may have perished in their efforts to save lives.
We will continue our coverage of these horrific events today. ABC 7 News at 11, of course, and we'll be with you every half hour. And now we rejoin ABC 7 News, ABC News rather, and Peter Jennings.
Because we were in the air when it happened. We're not told anything about it.
They said good luck, sleep in the airport.
And in city after city, anxious officials evacuated one building after another.
Our boss just finally came and told us, just go ahead and leave.
Not because of actual threats, but because no one knew what might be next.
There is a war here now.
We are a nation now on high alert, not just militarily, but psychologically, shaken on every level.
Just waiting.
For what?
To see if anything else is going to happen. To see if we're going to be attacked here in Atlanta.
It's a very strange feeling to be so threatened.
The uncertainty set in motion a wave of shutting down across the nation. Not just the obvious government buildings, but malls in Georgia and theme parks in Florida.
Due to unforeseen circumstances, the Magic Kingdom is now closing.
And schools everywhere.
Our military at home and around the world.
And in those classrooms still in session, you could hear the anxiety of the youngest generations, for whom this kind of attack had been limited to their history lessons until today.
They hit the Pentagon. It's a slap in the face. It's the nerve center of our military, and they hit the Pentagon? What is that?
I always thought America was like my superhero, like nothing could harm America. I mean, America is everyone's defender.
This is an attack on our generation. It is an attack on our culture, our system, our values, what we do.
There is a growing sense tonight that what we do now will truly define us as a nation.
I'd hate to see panic, because then whoever did this will win, and we can't let them win.
We are Americans, and I'm glad I am an American. We need, we just need to come together, and I think we will.
It will take that And much more in the coming days to see the nation, the entire nation, through this.
Head that way.
Erin Hayes, ABC News, Atlanta.
One never thinks of a citizen as being an ordinary citizen, but from those citizens, three expressions at least which are worth holding. The young man who said it's a slap at the face of the Pentagon, he couldn't imagine it. The young person who said it's an attack on our culture and our country and our military. It's not really hard to say it's an attack on the American culture because there's so many cultures here at the moment, but I think you know what he means. And young people who just couldn't believe that they were seeing what they were going to witness today. But as everybody in the country has experienced today, this is a new reality for the United States. We saw it first in Oklahoma City. We've seen it in any number of threats and the growing security that has been involved with our public life in the last several years, but nothing like this. So now go to California, where a similar report for us today from ABC's David Wright.
In Minnesota, the Mall of America never opened today. In Chicago, Navy Pier and the Lincoln Park Zoo were closed. In Orlando, even the Magic Kingdom was shut down. Just about any place in America where large numbers of people were likely to gather locked the doors and sent people home.
Nothing's going to get done today. It's going to be a miserable day.
With all of the nation's airliners grounded, thousands of travelers were stranded.
I'd probably feel safer in Europe if I could actually get over there right now.
It's horrible, and as Americans, we're totally unprepared for that. We just don't think that terrorism is going to hit in our backyard.
In Los Angeles, grief counselors were brought in to meet with family members of the 3 Los Angeles-bound planes that were hijacked and used by the terrorists. In San Francisco, one of the few planes left